the feeling that I got walking through this house was simply one of extreme empathy. And I instantly didn't care if I got the deal. But I instantly had this feeling of, man, we need to ensure that we get them out of this situation and into the next phase of their life. Welcome to the Ryan Rice Show, where we talk about what we learned yesterday that we can apply today so that we can be better tomorrow. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. In March of this year, 2024, I started doing in person appointments. And previously, I was closing everything virtually over the phone. And I want to give you all of the insights that I've learned in case they're helpful for your real estate business. Who am I? My name is Ryan Rice. I am a full time real estate investor, and I've been investing full time going on 4 years now. And I share as much as I can here in the hopes that it makes you more money in your real estate business. But I'm going to give you three key impacts that I've noticed about in person appointments. And then I'm going to tell you how these three things have impacted my actual close rate and what is the difference between my close rate in person and my close rate virtually. So, the first key, and it's kind of obvious, and it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if you're standing in front of someone, if you are in person with them or if someone invites you into their home, then you have the ability to build more rapport. You have the ability to build a deeper connection, which is going to ensure that the client or the prospect trusts you more. So, I want to give an example from earlier this week. I talked to a guy, and he was clearly a little bit older. Obviously, when he was on the phone, I couldn't tell how old that he was. Um, but he was a little naturally more standoffish and didn't want to talk much over the phone, wasn't giving me much information. And so I told him, like, hey, let me just come out and meet you in person. I sensed that this lead was going to be a better lead for me to go in person. I got to his house, and when he let me in, I could tell that he still had his guard up. And by the end of the appointment, before it was up, I knew his most of his life story. He shed some tears in the appointment. I had gained his complete trust. And I walked out that day with a contract. And I think it would have been nearly impossible to build the equivalent relationship with him that I did over the phone. Now, could I have still closed him over the phone? Maybe, but the level of deep relationship that I built with him because we were in person was very different. And with this demographic, I've noticed that an older demographic has tended to be a little bit more skeptical over the phone. And so, one thing that I am doing that's a little bit different in my business is if the lead is for sure in that type of demographic and they're somewhat qualified, I'll just immediately go out. And so, maybe something to consider in your business as well. The second key is just understanding and feeling the situation a bit differently. I'll give another example of an appointment that I had last week. I talked to this guy first on the phone, and he told me his wife was pregnant and they wanted to move before the baby got here. And I could tell there was some struggle, maybe a little bit of distress. And I I felt that it was going to be better if we scheduled an in-person appointment. So I went to the house, and when I got there and I walked through the home, I was floored. His teenage son was sleeping on a bare, stained mattress. The mattress was directly on the floor. One room, the gentleman's mother had passed away in the house, in the room, and it still had the bare slash stained mattress on the floor where she used to sleep. All but one of the rooms had all of the mattresses directly on the floor, none of them with sheets. There were urine stains on the floor from their dog, who would consistently use the bathroom inside, and it kind of had that smell like that was a consistent practice. And that dog had recently gone to the bathroom in the room where the mother had passed, and it was still sitting there on the floor. The flooring was coming apart in several different rooms. The corner of one of the windows was actually separated at least 4 to 5 inches from the house. And so there was a gigantic air gap from where the window had separated. It appeared maybe there was some sort of incident. I don't know. It wasn't clear what was going on. And there was just a trash bag over the window so that it wouldn't rain inside and attempt to provide some sort of insulation. But there were also piles and piles of clothes in one of the rooms. Some of the clothes appeared dirty, some appeared clean. And the feeling that I got walking through this house was simply one of extreme empathy. And I instantly didn't care if I got the deal. But I instantly had this feeling of, man, we need to ensure that we get them out of this situation and into the next phase of their life, especially before this baby comes into the world, because I don't want that baby to have to come in and kind of be exposed to this environment. Now, I could have gotten some of this information over the phone, but certainly not all of the details that I experienced when I was there in person. And above everything, what I felt walking through this house impacted me greatly. It impacted the level of empathy that I had for the clients. It impacted how motivated I was not to get the deal, but to get them to their next phase in whatever fashion. And I'm convinced that it impacted me so much to a point where I was able to speak with intense conviction about how important it was that we get them out of that house. Real quick, as you guys know, I just recently started this podcast. If you could give it a rating with a quick tap of the thumb, that would mean the world to me. And even more importantly, it could help spread the word to a broader audience, which in turn could help change a life. Thank you so much, and let's get back to the show. And it really helped me connect and relate to the seller that much more, because I understood their situation that much more. And I walked out of that house that day with a contract. And again, could I have closed the deal over the phone? Maybe, probably, even. But what the experience of walking through that house did to me, and what it did to my ability to empathize, relate to them, and influence them to make sure that we got them out of that house, was very, very important. And the third key that I've noticed about these in person appointments is just more accurate scopes of work. And again, that might be more common sense, but and this hasn't been a dramatic difference, but more of these little nuances here and there that are giving me a little bit better of an idea of the condition of the house. So, for example, that house that I just gave you guys an example of, there couldn't have been anything that the owner could have said or would have said, because an owner is not going to disclose some things, right? But there couldn't have been anything that the owner could have said that would have given me an accurate picture of the inside of that house. Another example, I recently went on an appointment, really, really nice brick rancher. It was in good shape. And when I walked the exterior, one of the exterior walls, this was the side of the house, was bowing rather significantly. I would say at least maybe 3 inches. And the owner had no idea. He was an older gentleman and just didn't know that the wall was bowing. And I believed him when he told me that he didn't know. And of course, that was helpful to identify. And those situations are going to be fewer and far between. Um, but they have come up. And so it's been my experience that having those accurate scopes of work has been helpful with those in person appointments. And just generally, I'm noticing one of the more beneficial parts of the scope of work when I am in person is noting the condition of the crawl space. In Virginia, a lot of the houses have crawl spaces, not basements. And as a result, like, the owners obviously don't go down there as much. Whereas if it was a basement, they could go down there all the time. But being able to get in the crawl spaces and see what's going on under the house is typically not something, one, that the owners have familiarity or recent experience with, but two, me being able to personally get in there and actually see what's going on, take pictures, take video, has been very helpful. And so, what has all this translated to? What has been the result of the increased rapport, the increased ability to understand my seller's situation more clearly, and a more accurate scope of work? Well, my close rate virtually, and this is again my personal close rate. I am closing all of these deals myself right now, but my personal close rate was just under 30% virtually, and it has jumped to nearly, actually no, with the contract that we got yesterday, it has jumped to 50% in person. And I actually might even get another contract this week from a previous in-person appointment that I had last week. So it's still early and the data isn't overly abundant, but there definitely seems to be an indicator of some benefits. And also the average deal size. And some haven't closed yet. So it's tough to, some of these deals are projected, but the average deal size is bigger. And so, in conclusion, there are certainly some costs to in person appointments, right? I have to take a lot more time. And when I'm in person with somebody, I spend a lot more time with them in person, getting to know them personally than I do just over the phone. And so they cost a lot more time. The logistics are a little bit tougher because there needs to be factored in drive time. My average in person appointment might be 30 minutes away. That's an hour of just drive time for the appointment. But with a big jump in close rate, so far the in-person appointment seems to be paying off. And what I'll do is once I have an abundant amount of data, I will just compare it all and share it with you guys so that you can see some of the benefits. But I wanted to share those details with you because that's what I have right now. And so what I'm doing right now, and I may change this process in the future, but for now, I'll go on in-person appointments either with the hottest leads or with leads where I can tell that it would be difficult to build rapport over the phone. For example, the first appointment that I talked about earlier. And so I'm not going on an in-person appointment with every single lead. We are being selective with the leads that we go on these in-person appointments with. And so what I'll do is I'll hop on the phone with them first. I'll understand their needs and then I'll schedule the in-person appointment if it feels appropriate. And I'll make that decision kind of in the moment. But that's what I've noticed so far. I'm going to keep sharing these lessons and insights with you guys as things move forward. But I hope it was kind of helpful for you guys to hear just some of the differences that I've noticed in the from in person to virtual, what it's done to my close rate. And if you're locking up deals in your backyard, you may just want to consider in person appointments, if anything, just to experiment and see how much deeper you can get the deals and how much the impact that it does to your close rate. So, hope that was helpful. Appreciate you guys listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.